Welcome guys to the first episode of the new season. Is that what we're going to call it? The new name you'll see is Daddy Fit. Thank you very much to social media for the inspiration for that name. Diet Diaries of a Dull Dad is a little bit in the past because the diet phase is over. I've started to go into more of a maintenance, slow gains, lean gains phase, just in preparation to go on holiday in a couple of months' time. So I don't want to be adding lots of body fat, as I discussed in the last episode. But yeah, we're just going to very, take things nice and steady. I'll talk you through the physique at the end. So, once I've checked in, once I've had the feedback from Christian, we'll run through that process. We'll run through everything that we've discussed there, next steps, what's going to happen. But for the time being, enjoy this next section. What I've done is just given you my pool session as it is. And I'm just going to talk over that about a subject that I think is really, really important, and that is the post-diet phase. Something that I'm personally gonna be embarking upon right now, and something that I'm sure you guys have gone through or will go through at some point as well. You've dieted down, you've got lean, you've got toned, you've got in shape. What comes next? Very, very important to keep an eye on that. So enjoy this next section, and any questions, as ever, give me a shout. Just while you are enjoying the training footage, I thought I'd talk through something that's a really, really important and often overlooked part of what we do as coaches and what we do as part of this process. A lot of people will come and work with a coach, come and work with me with that initial goal that's very much weight loss, fat loss focused. People want to lose some weight, they want to get in better shape, they want to get leaner, they want to get more toned. Absolutely phenomenal stuff, and we will 100% make that happen. The period that I think a lot of the time gets forgotten about, both from a coach's point of view, but also I think from the client point of view, is what happens after that dieting phase has been complete. And I've just been through this myself. You'll have seen from the recent videos, I've gone through the process of losing 25, 26 pounds. And I don't want all of a sudden to just pile all of that back on again. And when you go through a process of fat loss, you're learning really how to lose weight. You're going for a period where there's a little bit of hardship involved. You're going to feel hungry. You're going to have to push. You're going to have to ramp up cardio. You're going to have to make sure you're staying active when you really don't feel like it. All of that stuff is amazing, and it gives you a really, really good start point. But actually what happens next becomes more important. And depending on what that goal is for each person, someone actually might lose a lot of weight and they just want to maintain that for a period of time. But actually learning how to maintain that is really, really important, because all of a sudden it's not about just being in a calorie deficit, about doing more, about pushing harder. It's about trying to find that balance again. And that can also be difficult, because if you've got into the habit of, over the course of that diet phase, where you've been saying no to a lot of things, you've been very, very easy and able to push away all of the quote unquote bad foods to avoid certain occasions that would have brought temptation. All of a sudden, some of that stuff probably is going to start to get back into your life. Summer's coming up, there's going to be social things happening. You're going to be, going out with friends. There's going to be barbecues, there's going to be holidays. Learning how to manage and maintain that is such an important time. And I think then, what you really need to be looking at is committing to a decent phase after the diet phase to actually learn and understand how to do that. Maybe even more so if you're looking at going into phases of dedicated growth, if muscle gaining is your objective, managing that in the right way. So again, you don't all of a sudden go from pushing this diet really hard, getting yourself in amazing shape, and then it's like, right, job done, I'm going to go it alone, and all of a sudden you start ramping calories up, you do absolutely no cardio, your general fitness levels drop, your body fat levels absolutely skyrocket, and you just get yourself in a position where, 4, 5, 6 weeks down the line, you really need to be dieting again because you've just piled on a load of unnecessary weight. So again, actually learning how to manage those situations the right way is something that I think is like I say, massively overlooked by a lot of people. What we want to do is help things longer term. Teaching you how to diet, amazing. Like I say, there's going to be times where that's going to come in super, super useful. Actually helping you manage through the post-diet period Where I honestly think it's even harder, you know, so if you've got a goal, if you want to lose weight, you want to get lean, you want to get in shape for a photo shoot, for holiday, for an event, for a wedding, whatever it might be, I think it's often easy to do that because that becomes the focus in your mind. You've got a time frame, you've got a deadline, you know you need to make it happen and get the work done to do that. When things then become a bit more maintenance or growth, maybe there's less of a dedicated time frame in mind. Like it just becomes about potentially just about managing normal life. You know, actually, how do I handle those situations? With growth, it's going to be a more gradual process. So actually, you know, are we suddenly looking at, right, we want to be in shape for next summer. So, you know, maybe we want to maintain where we're at. You know, we've lost a good amount of weight. We want to maintain it for the next couple of months while the summer's here. We're going to be out and about. We're going on holiday. Once summer sort of starts to wind down a bit, we want to be looking at growing, and we want to look at growing through into early next year. And then we've got the holiday, the photo shoot, whatever it might be, you know, in summer next year that we're then going to diet back down for. And like I say, knowing how to manage that the right way is such an important thing. And so I would just really, really encourage anyone who, you know, is working with a coach, is considering working with a coach, think about the post-diet phase. And, you know, again, as coaches, we're starting to talk to clients about this really early. You know, it's important that you're aware of that because, as I say, when the diet's there, the deadline to get in shape is there, it sort of becomes known. You know, we know that 4 weeks before, 6 weeks before that thing, we're still really focused on that. And so actually starting to talk then about what comes next can help to be the thing that manages through that. And it, like I say, it's a tough period. Like the mentality changes, the focus can shift. It's very, very easy to go from that absolute laser focused, I need to diet, I'm in a deficit, I'm losing body weight, body fat every single week. Suddenly you've got a bit more freedom with food and it almost feels a bit lost. You know, you get a bit sloppy, you let a bit of this creep in, you let a bit of that creep in. And like I say, before you know it, a few weeks down the line, 10, 15, 20 pounds have been added, you feel a bit horrible and you know, you're thinking about dieting again. And that phase, that post-diet phase should be lasting for a decent length of time. You know, if it's maintenance, then actually it could be a period that you want to last almost forever. If you've got muscle growth goals, then obviously that's a period that we want to last for a good 6, 9, 12, 18 months to really, really add significant muscle tissue so that when we get lean again, we look even better. So just keep that in mind, like you're in that diet mode, you're laser focused, but we do need to think about post-diet period because it can very, very easily go a little bit the other way. So check-in has been done, and as you might have seen, we are going into a little bit of a maintenance stroke lean gains phase. So this week's check-in, the weight has largely remained the same. The weekly average is pretty much as it was. Very, very small amount of movement, but completely negligible to the point where we wouldn't even consider, to be honest, barely even consider it any kind of change much at all, you know, from where I was last week. And so pretty much what that means is those additional carbs that have gone in on both my training and my rest day, so 100 grams extra carbs on both of those days, essentially we've pretty much found where my maintenance is at this particular point in time. So cardio's remained something that I like to keep in, particularly during my growth phases, my off seasons, whatever you want to call them. I think it's great, obviously, for like heart and lung health, but it also helps to let the food move around. It's digestively, it helps. I also quite like the rhythm and routine once I'm in it. You know, cardio is one of those things I think a lot of people struggle to get into. And that's probably because they've just avoided it. They've come out of fat loss phases. They've just completely said no to cardio altogether. I like to keep it in to keep the rhythm, but it just makes me feel good. So cardio is going to remain in there 3 to 4, 30 minutes a week. Typically I do those after my workout just because it's convenient for me to do so while I'm there at the gym. So just 30 minutes of incline walking on the treadmill. I can reply to messages. I can do a few bits and pieces on my phone while I'm doing that. And, you know, the time passes relatively quickly. So We will see what comes back with the check-in reply. Once that's all good, I'll also show you the pictures at that point. So I'll talk you through, once I've had the reply back from Christian, I'll talk you through the physique, where it's at. It's pretty much where it was last week, just to give you a little bit of a spoiler. Probably a bit fuller, if anything. Obviously, that additional food going in without losing any of the leanness. If potentially getting a little bit leaner, often that happens. And yeah, what we'll plan to do. But I'll see you very, very shortly. So check-in reply sent and check-in reply received, and a little bit of a change. So I'm going to pop the pictures up for you, just so you can have a little look. Definitely looking leaner, definitely looking fuller, which is exactly what we want to see when we come, in that, what we call like the reverse period. So, we've dieted right down, we're in a relatively depleted state. We start to put a bit more food back in, and it's not uncommon at all to see that leanness improve as the muscles fill out. And we would expect to see that happen over the next few weeks. So I'll pop those pictures up for you. These are pretty much my start point when it comes to the start of this maintenance growth phase. It's probably going to be largely maintaining up to holiday. And then once I get back from holiday, I would think we'll sort of ramp up the growth, certainly taking that out towards the end of the year, and then subject to what I'm going to do next year, which is something that I will share in due course once I really, really sort of know myself and know exactly what the plans are. And then obviously I'll let you all in on what that's going to look like. But for this week, as I mentioned in the video before, like the weight's pretty much stabilized. So we've pretty much found maintenance. So just a little bit of a bump. So 25 grams extra of carbs on both training day and rest day. So just a 100-calorie bump, just to keep things nice and steady, but also to keep things moving in that right direction. So just a little bit of additional food over both days. We'll see where we're at next week. We'll see if that just pushes us ever so slightly into that surplus. But keeping things tight, keeping things controlled, very, very easy. As I've mentioned before, to almost like let that I'm out of a diet mode start to creep into the mindset. And what we want to do is try and keep focused. I don't want to be eating everything and anything thinking, I'm not dieting anymore. Then more body fat's going to go on. I'm not going to feel as good. Almost keeping in that mindset of like, this is still a diet, but it's just a diet in a different direction. So trying to be as on it as possible, make sure we're hitting all of those targets, keeping it nice and tight, keeping it controlled, so that I can go away on holiday feeling absolutely fantastic, which is something I'm very, very much looking forward to. So welcome to the first one of the Daddy Fit series. Any questions, as ever, please do let me know. But I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll be back again next week.